Alright, so let's pick up where we left off last time. We're going to start the background for the sun. The first thing we got to do is draw a vertical line from the bottom of the paper up to the sun, and then we're going to put some smaller horizontal lines. I'm going to do 3, 4, 5 lines. Put in whatever number of lines that best fit your art projects because they're not all going to be the same. And then lightly shade in every other square. Now we're going to go to the top of the sun. So from the top to the top of the paper, and it looks like I'm going to be able to fit in exactly 3 small horizontal lines, and I'm going to shade in every other square again. Again, we're going to be using a black marker to trace on top of our artwork a little later on. That's why we're lightly shading, just so we can kind of keep track of what needs to be colored in and what doesn't. We're going to draw another 2 horizontal lines from the right side of the sun's face to the right side of the paper, and this time small vertical lines. Fit in as many as you can. Try to space them out evenly, and then shade in every other square. Now, if at any time your hand starts to get tired, don't forget to give yourself a break, shake out your hand, let it relax, and then begin again as soon as you can. Now that I've shaded in every other square, we're going to put in a few more of these to kind of give a pattern that radiates out, that kind of shines out from the sun. The next lines are going to be diagonal, and they go from an area on the side of the sun's face where the eye is all the way up into the top right corner of the paper. And now, yep, you guessed it, some short diagonal lines inside those to kind of create those segments, spacing them out carefully. Just an artist tip, make sure that you are pressing down lightly. Lightly, of course, because in case you make a mistake by accident, you can get out an eraser and easily erase the mistake. After all, that's why we're using pencil before we trace everything. So we can easily erase mistakes. You certainly cannot erase an error that you've done with a marker, otherwise we just go for it with markers, but this is a much better way to do it. Okay, now that I've shaded it in, I'm going to put yet another one of these patterned lines that go diagonally down into the bottom right corner of the paper. So 1 and 2, drawing lightly, not pressing down too hard. Fill it in with diagonal lines, short ones. Now, as you're kind of creating your masterpiece, if you want to use different kind of lines, you're most certainly welcome to. Maybe they're zigzag, or maybe they're a little bit wavy, but the straight ones I think look best for me, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Coloring lightly. It's important to maintain an artist's patience. Kind of make sure that you're taking your time to do the best job you can. Don't rush through it. When you rush through art, it makes the art look not quite as good as it could if you had taken your time. So make sure that you're taking your time. All right, just one more area to shade. And all right, I'm done. Now there are 2 more spots, so look very carefully. There's one here. So 2 lines. Again, diagonal, fill them in, split them up, shade them in. Okay, good. Good. We're putting these details in to make it look a lot more interesting, and I think it's working so far. And finally, 2 more diagonal lines. These will be the last 2. I think these look really interesting. They almost look like drinking straws that you would put into a glass of chocolate milk, perhaps. And shade in the bottom. Don't press down too hard. Okay, and you can see that with my free hand, I'm holding the paper steady, and I'm using my fingers to hold the paper down close to where I'm actually drawing and filling in these spaces with my pencil. That's so that the paper doesn't move around. So it's a great technique to have. I'm sure most of you are already doing this. All right. Now for something a little different. let's do 3 wavy lines. And we want to be very careful about these wavy lines. We want them to be right next to each other. So you're going to want to go a little bit slower. Don't do it sloppy style. Give it the time it needs. Give it some great craftsmanship. You can see that I'm following the grooves, the bumps. Up and down, back and forth. 3 lines. And I'm going to put this pattern design in between each of my, let's call them drinking straws. I like referring to them as drinking straws. So in between each one, put 3 wavy lines. They can be a little bit further apart than the ones I'm putting. But I like this pattern because not only is it kind of like streaming out with those blinking drinking straws, but also these wavy lines kind of, they give you the impression that the sun is just shining with not just light but with heat as well. I think these curvy lines do a great job of giving the sun that kind of artistic effect, that look like, it's bright and beaming and hot. Okay. After you've completed it, you are pretty much done for today. So now that we have both the moon and the sun and their backgrounds filled in, during our next rotation, we're going to start Sharpie tracing. So what I'd like you to do is take a picture, upload it to Schoology, and you're done. I'll see you next time.